Hello and welcome back to the CQC video tutorial series. In this video, we're going to touch on the concept of client-side drivers. This is something that's not going to play a huge role in the tutorials, but it's something that comes up fairly often, and to new users, it can be a little bit confusing. So we just want to make sure that you understand it before we move forward. The drivers that we've installed so far have been what would be called server-side drivers. These are installed into one of the background programs that we installed when we set up CQC initially. So they're always there. They're not something that run when you are logged on. They're always running in the background, and they have no user interface. So there's no way for the user to interact with them. Any information generally that you need to give to a device driver, you give it when you install it. However, there are some that are more complex that require some sort of configuration interface. Examples would be for like an ELK or an Omni automation panel. These are quite complex devices. They have a lot of options. So there is a need there to be able to provide some way to configure them beyond just the mechanisms that are available when you install a driver. It would be pretty tedious to try to configure one of those in that sort of way. So for certain drivers, there is a client-side interface, and you would access them through this toolbar item here, which is administer local client drivers. You can also do it through administer and local management, either way. And when you select that, you will get a dialog that will show any currently loaded client drivers, which there will not be because we haven't loaded any yet. So we will use the add button to do it. However, it's going to be an empty list because we don't have any loaded yet that would have a client-side driver. Only those that have client-side drivers will be available. Well, actually, it will be a combination of those devices that you have currently installed that have available client-side interfaces will be available. So we need to install one that does have one, just for demonstration purposes here. And it's something that we may use in the tutorials coming up as well. So what we're going to do here is no different from what we did earlier when we installed the device simulator driver. We are going to edit the drivers that are loaded on this particular machine, which is the only one that we have installed currently. There's no other machines set up. And here's the device simulator driver that we loaded before. So we're going to press add driver again, and we're going to once again go down to the CQC section, and there's one called the variable driver, and we'll select that. What the variable driver is just a very convenient little utility driver. It doesn't actually talk to any devices. What it lets you do is just define any fields that you want, and that way you can effectively create system-wide temporary data storage values that can be accessed anywhere. Since the device driver is accessible to any CQC system in the network, you can just define values that you can use for your own purposes. They're not controlling any device or anything, so they can be whatever you want them to be. And we'll just call it, we'll give the moniker for this one, we'll just call it bars. And once again, this is an extremely simple one. It doesn't talk to any type of device. In this case, it doesn't even have anything like the device simulator, which in this case, it talks to its own little simulated device program. This one doesn't talk to anything. It just lets you define fields that you can write values to and read them back out of. So that's installed, and we can see that it's connected to its device down here as we checked before. And in this case as well, since it's not actually talking to any real device, it would never be able to connect because it's only talking to itself. So now we can go back and bring up our client-side driver administration, and we can press add, and now we can see that there's a variables driver there. So if we load that, we now see behind us here that it showed up, and we can now close this administrative dialog. And now we have this variables driver that we can size up the screen here to fit. This is not like a dialog box. It's a nested window within this larger administrative window. So it's just something that lives within this client area here, and it won't. There's no way to close it directly like you would a normal window. It just stays open, and if you bring back up the administrative interface, it'll still be here, and it doesn't prevent you from accessing anything else while it's up and running. If you don't actually need it, just go ahead and remove it, and I'll show you how to do that before we complete it here. But it just adds that much more overhead to getting the program up and running. It has to get all these guys connected out to their real drivers and get all their information. So you can see here, I actually had this driver loaded before, and I had to find a field for it already, which kind of takes the wind out of my sails here, since I was going to show you how to do that. But we'll go through another one. If you press edit fields, then you can just add any fields that you want. I've added one. I called it test bool, and I gave it a type of boolean. I'll add another one here. I'll call it test string. And I'll select it, and I'll give it a type of string. So now we can save that, and it says that the new configuration was uploaded. So this client-side interface has let me change the configuration of the driver, and when I saved it, it sent it over to the server-side driver that's running in the background, and the server-side driver accepted it and updated itself. So now if we were to go back to our field browser that we used in the previous video, we will now see two drivers, and one of them is now bars. And if we look at that, we'll see our two fields. This one does have a current value, but it's just by default it was just an empty piece of text, so it's there, but it's just empty, so you can't really see it. But we could set it if we wanted to. If we move this over a little bit so that we can see the current value there in the driver above us. If I do change field, set it to testing, and now close that, and we now see that the current value over here in the client-side driver shows that the value that we just set, and we also see it here in the field browser, so we know that we set it. So effectively, that's all there really is to it. For those not very common device drivers that are complex enough that they warrant having their own separate client-side interface, you would access them like this. If they have one, it will be documented in the driver documentation on the website, so you'll know whether it's there or not. If you want to get rid of one, just go back to the administrative screen again, highlight the one you want to remove, and press remove, and it's asking if we're sure. We'll say yes, and it just removes it, and now it's gone. You can always come back to it again later, just add it back in if you need to make any changes. If you're not going to make any changes for a long time, just get rid of it, and it just makes the administrative tool a lot faster to load, because it doesn't have to get all the drivers set up. So that's basically it. That's what a client-side driver is. We may use the bars driver at some point during the tutorial, so we'll just leave it in for now. Go ahead and do it yourself. If you didn't do it, follow along and keep it in there so that you have the same setup that I have here for future videos. And that's it for now. We'll come back in the next time.